Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I am coming to you as always from the south of Germany. Today is Saturday, it's the 9th of May 2020 and I'm so happy that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting. I was going to say knitting and crochet, but today is going to be only knitting because someone set themselves crazy goals last week. So I spent this past week knitting like a world champion to try to meet those self-imposed goals, so there wasn't any crochet this week. Anyways, if you're watching for the very first time, then a huge welcome to you. I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast. And for those of you who are coming back every week or so, welcome back. Thank you so much for just coming back and being regular viewers of my knitting shenanigans. So, where should we get started? Today I have some finished objects, I have a few works in progress, I have quite a bit of stash acquisitions, which is also always very fun, and possibly just some random chatter towards the end. In case you don't know, if you're looking for any further information, or maybe you don't understand something that I said because English is not my native language, I always link my Ravelry project pages right underneath each and every video, so you can always click on that link and you will get straight to Ravelry, and there you should be able to find anything that you need to know, and it is much quicker if you have a look there rather than asking me, because I take a while to reply to messages and all of that, and it just makes things a bit more streamlined. So yeah, should we get started with some knitting? As I mentioned, I had set myself some goals last week. So it kind of came out of nowhere, but I had decided that until this week, I wanted to finish both the baby cardigan and ideally the big cardigan, as well as finishing one cable sock and one colorwork sock. So let's see how much I actually managed to get done. So as you may know, I had started the Branches and Buds sweater, which I turned into a cardigan, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I started that, I don't know, maybe 10 days ago. And once I saw how that was turning out, I decided that I really desperately needed a matching baby cardigan. Yes, apparently I am that person now. So what did I do? I chose to base my baby cardigan on the Strange Brew sweater pattern by Tin Can Knits, which is a genius sort of pattern making recipe, and I've talked about this so many times, I'm not going to go into detail today. But the advantage is that it comes in a couple of different gauges, so you can use different yarn weights, and it starts from a newborn size up to a pretty large men's size. So I've been using that pattern quite a lot to modify and make baby garments, and I used it to then put the Branches and Buds chart in a slightly shortened version onto the cardigan. And as you can see, it is slipping off the hanger because this is the only small hanger that I have and it is too small. But I have finished this little cardigan, and how cute is it? So this is kind of a mashup between the Strange Brew sweater and the Branches and Buds colorwork chart. I only did one, as you can see, and I sticked it so it turned into a cardigan, and I love it. It is so adorable, isn't it? So the yarn that I use for this is Rauma in their Finool base, Finool PT2. The blue is one of their recent marled colorways that I think they dye on a gray base, and it's really stunning. And then this is just one of the grays that I had in stash. You may remember that last week I said that ideally I would like to do both cardigans without any contrasting cuffs and stuff, but it turns out I really had so little yarn. I don't want to say I'm playing yarn chicken, because essentially I just weighed the yarn continually while using it on both projects, and I worked it out like by the gram. But I realized pretty quickly that I would have to do like contrasting bands and stuff, but I think it turned out really cute. So this is done. It is steeked. I have put one button on the front so I can close it if need be. But besides that, it's just a pretty simple open cardigan. As you can tell, the neckline is quite open. I don't know about the fit about this one. I kind of modified it quite a bit. I had some issues with gauge. I was playing around with it. And one night when I was working on the body, and I may have been hormonal, and I almost ripped this entire thing out because I felt like it was never going to work out. But it is done and it doesn't actually look too bad. And we will just see how it fits. But obviously I don't want anything that is too constricting around the neckline. Maybe the neckline is a bit too big, but it really shouldn't be because I did follow the pattern for that. And I'm sure we will use it somehow. So this is, I think, the 0 to 6 month size. I feel like because my stitch gauge was a little bit bigger, it is quite roomy, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. So yeah, it is done. And now the big question is, where did we get with the adult version of this cardigan? Well, you guys, it is not blocked. I literally finished the last button band this morning. So it's not going to be pretty to look at, but it is also done. So this is the original Branches and Buds cardigan. It is actually a sweater pattern. It is by Carrie Bostic Hogue. And I knit this in the past as written as a sweater, but this time I decided to turn it into a cardigan. So I added some steek stitches. And then in the end, I cut this open. So if you're interested in how steeking works, just maybe look at a YouTube tutorial or Google it, and I turned this into a cardigan. And as you can tell, it is done. Again, I used every last bit of yarn. I'm getting quite good at playing yarn chicken because I do it all the time because I tend to underbuy yarn. So I had, I think, 300 grams of this main color, which is enough for a sweater for me. It's fingering weight Rauma Fino garn. But obviously if you knit 2 garments, even though one is very small, that changes things. So it has kind of sleeves between 3/4 length and full length, maybe bracelet length sleeves. But I really wanted it to be quite long, so I measured everything out exactly. I also actually measured how much yarn I needed for the button bands on the baby one, and then just calculated how much I would need for the adult one, just to maximize the length on this cardigan, and it turned out okay. I don't have the yarn leftovers to show you, but it's literally like one ball like this size. I really maximized my yarn, which is good. And it is done. So like I said, it does need a good block and then everything will kind of even out and smooth out. But I'm just very happy to have this off the needles. So I did a steek. And yes, I had to put in a pink steek because it's pink and I wanted it. And for this one, usually I actually always pick up for the button bands first before I cut the yarn. Just because by picking up the button bands, you're putting a little bit of strain on the stitches, but with a yarn like this is non-superwash. This yarn is made for steeking. You really don't have to worry about it too much, and I wanted to know whether or how this cardigan would lie on me before deciding whether to put in buttons and buttonholes. So I actually cut this one first and then only picked up the button bands after it was already steeked. And it worked just fine. So no problem there. And I'm just going to have this as an open front cardigan, so this doesn't have any buttonholes. It was actually really funny because I tried this on while knitting it when it was still in sweater form. And I last tried it on about, I don't know, a week ago, and it fit just fine. And then I tried it on yesterday and I was like, oh no, this will never ever close on me in my current state. So yeah, I'm just busting at the seams. But I decided to leave it open because I don't really close any of my cardigans anyways, and I like the look, and I just really wanted to see if this sort of neckline would fall weird or do anything funny, but it doesn't. It actually looks quite nice. So there we go, open front cardigan. As soon as I'm done recording, I will block this. But obviously I just wanted to show it to you straight away, and then next week I will probably wear it if I'm not overheating like I am today, and tell you a little bit more about how it fits and all of that. So for this I did a ton of modifications, but I feel like I'm getting better at actually writing those modifications down. So if you go to my project page, you should find quite a lot of information there. Some of it I literally just write down so I can remember what I did myself. So I do use those notes for myself as well, but if anyone is interested, you can have a look. So that is 2 finished objects and another sweater's quantity out of my stash, which is good because if you don't know, I'm kind of challenging myself to knit as much yarn as I possibly can towards or until the end of my pregnancy. And so far I think I've used, I think 1.5 kilos of yarn roughly. So I mean, I'm always buying new yarn, so it's not really making a huge difference in stash, but it still feels good. And this is again yarn that I purchased last year at the Oslo Knitting Festival, and I love knitting through the yarn that I actually purchase when traveling, so very happy with this. I love this yarn and I can't wait to block this garment because I think I will wear it all the time. So let's see how I did on my other 2 challenges to finish both a cabled and a colorwork sock. So for the colorwork socks, I am knitting a pattern by Ducati, who is a German designer, but the pattern is also in English, and I will admit I am actually using the English instructions, which kind of doesn't make sense, but I never knit from German patterns, so I find English speaking patterns or the way that they are written much more simple and logical, and B, I'm just more used to the terms, so I'm actually better at knitting from English patterns than from the ones in my own native language. So anyways, Ducati, she has a club called Power Flower Club, and it is a colorwork sock club where you get a colorwork sock pattern for I think May, June and July, and I joined that on a whim last week, kind of to challenge myself to work on some all over colorwork socks, and boy, I have fallen down a rabbit hole. So ta-da! I really should have put this on a sock blocker, but I didn't think about it. But I have finished the first sock. So this is simply called Power Flower Mai. So Mai is a German word for May, which is just spelled M-A-I. And again, there are various ways to find this on Ravelry, by searching, by clicking on my project pages, whatever. You will find it if you want to find it. And yeah, I have finished the first one, and you guys, I am so obsessed with colorwork socks, which you will see in my acquisitions because I want to knit all the colorwork socks now. This was so fun. So it's a top-down sock. It has a sort of heel flap construction, which I followed the pattern and it was super clear. It was really, really nice. The only mistake that I made is there's actually a flower at the bottom of the heel flap, which is really neat. But I misread the pattern, so I did one row, I think, in the contrasting color, which I shouldn't have. But who cares? I mean, it is literally at the bottom of my foot. But yeah, it turned out really, really well, and these socks fit me amazingly well. So I'm not going to give anything away. I had a couple of people ask about what heel, what technique this is, and so on. And it is a paid-for pattern, so again, I will always ask you to refer to the pattern. But the numbers that she uses, like the stitch count, and I used a 2.5 millimeter needle for the colorwork portion, so that's a US 1.5. It just gives me a really perfectly fitting colorwork sock. So I know that often I think we are a little bit nervous about colorwork socks because it is harder to make them fit and they are not as stretchy, but these fit so well, like the combination of yarn and pattern and needle, it just worked out super well and I love how it turned out. So this hasn't been blocked yet, obviously, and I have started the second one. but I'm not very far on it, so I literally just knit the ribbing, which by the way, I modified the pattern, so it has a really beautiful ribbing, but I didn't want to knit through the back loop. So I kind of did my own thing, and now I am just ready to start on the color work. And those of you who know me might be surprised at the needles that I'm using, and trust me, so am I. So I knit the first sock, I knit most of it on magic loop, which is what I tend to do with socks because I don't like 9-inch circulars, and I've kind of stopped knitting with DPNs. But doing color work and doing it on magic loop, whether it is mittens or socks, you always have to be very careful when you turn the needles. So when you change from your top needle to your bottom needle, because you don't want to have those side bits too tight, so it's always a bit of a tensioning issue. So I decided that I would give 9-inch circulars another go, and I got these ones. This is the Adi Sockenwunder, which I've used before. I just didn't have the right size. So this is a 9-inch circular where one needle is longer than the other, which makes it a bit less like a tiny crampy to work on, which is my main issue with these short needles generally. So let's see. Yeah, you can see the difference, I think. And so I thought I would give this another go and see if I like it. And I actually really do like it. I think it is because I am already, you know, slowed down by having to do the color work, so I can't like zip through this anyways. So the fact that it is a little bit slower and a bit of a different motion really didn't bother me with this. And the tension comes out really, really nicely. I think I was about halfway down the foot when I changed needles, which you should never change needles in a project, I know, but it worked out. I fully prepared myself that I might have to rip back if my tension changed, but it didn't, and it actually gave me a really nice sort of tension. I really, really like it. So apparently I'm a convert now because I knit colorwork socks and I knit them on these tiny circular needles. And I also still have my magic loop needle in my bag. This is actually one size smaller because I need this for the heel anyways, for the heel and the toe, and I also used it for the cuff. So I'm just going to knit like the colorwork portion on this tiny needle and then change to the bigger needle when I do the heel flap and all of that. So that was another success, and I just really enjoy these colorwork socks. It is definitely a case of always just knitting one more row, and I like it. Oh, and the yarn that I use for this is a pretty affordable sock yarn. It is Lang Yarn's Jawohl. It's a superwash sock yarn. It comes in a ton of really fun colors, and I really like it because it is, I think, much softer than most of the other sort of affordable commercial sock yarns. And it's kind of, it's not necessarily a super thick sock yarn, but it's kind of smooshy and plump, and it just works really well with my color work. So I really like this, and by the way, I'm not sponsored. And yeah, so that is my color work sock. Now, if you're asking, what about the cabled sock? I didn't even touch it. So that is the one thing that I didn't manage to do, but again, I don't care. It's not a competition. I know that probably some of you think I'm insane for even setting myself all these crazy goals, but I actually found that last week I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed having set those goals for myself, and it made me feel really productive. And I don't think I want to do that every week, but it worked out and it was quite fun. The only thing that I have to show you, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to show this to you because it's not very interesting, is I cast on another vanilla sock because I had a doctor's appointment, which included taking a diabetes test, which I passed, you guys. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous about that. But that involved basically waiting for an hour, so I was like, I need to have some simple socks. And neither the color work nor the cables were really a project that I wanted to take to the doctor's office. So I cast on some plain vanilla socks, and I've literally just finished 20 rows of ribbing. So I didn't get very far. So this is probably going to be some kind of vanilla sock, maybe blueberry waffles, who knows. And this yarn is actually some really precious old yarn. I really love it. It's very, very neon. I'm not sure how well it shows up on the camera. And this is an old skein of Bärenwolle. So you may remember this if you've been knitting and following podcasts for a while. This was a German sock yarn dyer, Vicky, who has sadly stopped dyeing. I really, really enjoyed her yarn. And this is on her barefoot sock base in the colorway Disco Nights. So I've kind of been keeping this for a while, and recently, I'm not sure if I talked about it, but I had just caked up a whole bunch of sock yarn to knit through it for my sort of stash knitting challenge. So I had this caked up and I just decided to take it with me and cast on some socks. But as you can see, I didn't get super far with them. So yes, that is pretty much all that I've been working on this week. Sadly, no crochet. I want to get back to crochet today because today is Saturday, which is Corona Crochet Saturday, and that is totally something that I just kind of made up. But I've gotten into this habit of crocheting on Saturday, so that is what I will do later today. Shall we talk about some acquisitions, because I do have a few. Alright, so I had a couple of things that actually arrived over the last couple of weeks. One thing I'm not going to talk about today because, quite frankly, I had a pretty disappointing experience with their customer service. So while I don't show things generally to promote brands, I definitely don't want to show that because I wasn't very impressed. So you will just see that whenever I work with it. But I did get two things, completely unnecessary, but there is a backstory that I do want to share with you. So first up, I mentioned how I am obsessed and I want to knit all the colorwork socks. And you might think, well, you have a stash full of yarn, but it turns out I don't have any good stash for colorwork socks because pretty much all of my sock yarn that I have is like speckled, variegated, very colorful yarn, which can work for some color work, but I wanted more solid colorways. And then also a lot of the time, like, I don't always want to use two 100-gram skeins, which can be quite expensive if they're from indie dyers. I just want like simple sock yarn, and I already told you that I really enjoyed the Jawohl sock yarn for my Power Flower socks. So I have been obsessed with this idea, and if you go into my Ravelry favorites, you will see that I have like a million colorwork patterns that I want to do. And I have all these plans. And also I know that I need more yarn for the June and July editions of that club anyways. So I'm just going to show this to you like this. I got myself some more Lang Jawohl sock yarn to make more colorwork socks. I'm not going to show you all of it or go through the colors, but essentially I bought some of these to go with colors that I already have. So what I'm planning to do is this combination because it is awesome. It is very bright. I have been wanting to have this very bright pink for a while. I also am planning to do this combination, which I think is awesome. I definitely went for the more high contrast versions. This again, so fun. I love it. And then I got some cream yarn because I have some of their sort of like mauve yarn in stash, which I think would go quite nicely. And I got one yellow skein because I already have one. And I love this color. It is so obnoxiously bright, and I'm kind of into the brights right now. I think it's really fun to have like a flowery, soft motif and combine it with a very bright, sort of high contrast yarn. So I had one of these in stash and it's just not enough, so I am gambling that this may be the same dye lot because I did buy it from the same company. And if it is, then I can make some fun color work, possibly Grello, something, I don't know, I'm not quite sure, with this as well. So this was very much random, but trust me, you guys, I spent about 2 days not even knitting color work, but instead just planning all the color work things, even kind of thinking about doing a couple of own color work design socks. So I'm just in that sort of frame of mind, and I actually really enjoy it because, I mean, without being super down, these whole Corona times are kind of crazy sometimes, and colorwork socks are something that really take your mind off anything else, and I do really enjoy it. So that is one thing that I got. And then I have a very, very sad story. And basically what happened is I felted 3 sweaters. I do felt stuff every now and then, and please, I'm not asking for any advice on how to wash sweaters. I know how to wash sweaters. I'm not asking for your opinions. It is just a matter of I'm pregnant and I forget things and I don't think about things. It is insane how much pregnancy brain I have these days, and so over the course of like 2 weeks I felted 3 of my favorite sweaters. So I brought one over to show you because it looks hilarious. Cute baby jumper, right? That used to be a full-size, Julia-sized sweater. It was beautiful. It was in this yarn from Scuderia. It was not superwash. And this just completely shrunk into this tiny little sweater. It is adorable. And it kind of broke my heart at the same time. You can see it was a faded sweater. I wore this all the time. This was the My Sweater by Leni Hoy. Luckily, without knowing this, maybe I knew it was going to happen. I have actually ordered from the same dyer. I ordered a different base, but in this colorway down here, which is called Darling, very recently. So at least I can knit a similar sweater soon. But I didn't only felt this, I also felted my own design sweater, which I never wrote up, which was this oversized sort of texture pattern out of Rauma Vinyl, which that was my favorite sweater. I wore that all the time, and that was perfect for pregnancy because it was so oversized and so comfy. And I threw it in the wash because the sleeves had kind of become very, very baggy, so I thought I'd just cinch it in a little bit. And then I forgot how to use my brain, so that was ruined, and I may have cried. And I also felted my pavement sweater, which was out of I think a Wool Addicts yarn, which is also very nice. So I was a little bit heartbroken and possibly again over emotional. And at some point Kai was like, just get another yarn and knit yourself another oversized sweater, because 2 of the sweaters I can deal with not having them anymore. But that oversized one that I designed myself, I was actually really sad because that was a really good and handy sweater to have. It was so good to wear, and while I have a lot of sweaters that do still fit me, that was one of the very few that was still very comfortable and something that would fit me for a while. So I have ordered some consolation yarn. And where did I have to order? Of course, I had to order from my friend Sabrina, who has Das Mondschaf. So she actually had a birthday sale, which incidentally happened on the same day, which was awesome. And I decided to get myself some of her DK weight yarn, which I have never tried, to knit myself another oversized sweater. So this is something that I want to knit fairly soon. We will see if it happens, but I got 4 skeins, and these are, I think, 115 gram skeins. This is her Draco base, which is 100% superwash merino in the GLaDOS colorway. And oh my gosh, I love it. So this is making me feel a whole lot better, and the fact that I have like more gaps in my sweater wardrobe just means that I have more space to knit more sweaters. So it is alright. I have gotten over the loss, but it was a little bit sad. But this yarn is beautiful. I just absolutely love it. The colorway is really cool. I would definitely have to alternate skeins, which isn't a big deal. And again, I may just design something myself again or go with a pattern. I'm just envisioning again something textured, something oversized, something sort of sweatshirt style that I can wear all the time. And I know I could maybe knit a jacket or cardigan and it would be more handy, but this wants to be a sweater. And I very, very rarely knit with DK weight or heavier yarns. So I'm thinking this should go quite quickly. I was torn between her sport and her DK weight, but I am very happy that I went with the DK. And then, because this yarn didn't want to travel by itself, I also got one skein of sock yarn. So this is her Pegasus base. It is a sock weight yarn in the Ankh Morpork colorway. I'm sure this is a reference that I'm not getting. Maybe it's Lord of the Rings. I have no idea. I'm sure you guys will tell me. But it's these brownie tones with these springy greens in it, and I think it's really fun. I was planning to use this for socks for myself, but I'm thinking maybe Kai would like it as well. We will see. He hasn't decided yet, but you know how much I love Sabrina's yarn, so yeah, very happy mail for me this week. Yeah, so that's basically all that's been happening in my yarny world this week. Again, some sweater dramas, but I am over it now. I will survive, and luckily I do knit a lot and I have a lot of knitted garments, so it's not like I will really notice anything missing. And 2 of the sweaters that I felted, they were just too small for me and for anyone in my family. But they weren't so badly felted that I'm going to throw them out. I will actually just give them to charity, and I think someone else can wear them, especially the Fino one. To someone who doesn't know, it might just be a bit more of a fluffy sweater. So I even thought about keeping it, but to me, I know what it used to be like, so it would always just make me sad. But so at least 2 out of 3 will actually have a good home. And for this one, I haven't been able to do it yet, but what the dyer Micah suggested was actually a really good idea, to cut it up and then maybe use like this felted stuff for pot holders or just in the kitchen. So I just need to find the courage to cut this up, because yeah, I can make something out of this and it feels so funny. I think this was the Pinta base. It had some kind of ramie and silk and wool content, and one of these fibers kind of made it all like bobbly and almost like a boucle yarn. So it's just a really interesting fabric too. It kind of feels like a teddy bear. So yeah, that is what happened this week. The only last thing that I wanted to touch upon, and I'm sorry for shaking the camera, is to just quickly chat about well, it's not so official now. I'm trying to say this without sounding rude. I do quite often get requests for either tutorials or technique tips or very, very specific questions about how do you do this and how do you do that, and can you film a video and this and that. And while I do appreciate that it is very well-meaning and stuff, I just wanted to clear up once again that I don't do any tutorials. I'm not planning to do any tutorials, and in terms of sharing like technique tips and all of that, I feel like I share a lot already. But I sometimes feel like I am a free knitting service provider or knitting help desk, which I'm just not. And I mean this in the nicest way possible, but maybe it's just something to think about, because especially on Instagram I really notice it, that I always basically write like what pattern am I using, mostly I write what yarn I'm using, and I still get a million questions, and I find it really hard to say no. I find it extremely hard. And I tend to reply to all these things, which is fine if it's just a couple of messages, but it really does add up. And again, I feel like some things, oh my god, I don't want to sound rude. I am so happy to share what I do, and I mean, obviously that is why I do the podcast. But I would just remind you that I don't do any tutorials, and I'm not planning to change that. If you want to know how I knit, I actually have saved a highlight in my Instagram stories. So you do need Instagram. I'm very sorry about that. But there is a video at the top of my stories, or a couple I think, on how I knit. So you can look at that if that interests you. Basically, it's not that interesting. I just do continental knitting, and Again, if you look up continental knitting, you will find a million videos of people doing continental knitting, and I don't have a very specific or special technique at all. I only have those videos on Instagram, so there is just no way I can put them on YouTube, and I just don't have the time or energy right now to film additional content. And I know it seems like a small thing to do, but all these videos, all of this stuff, it does take a lot of time. And also one reason why I do hesitate to do more like technique things is that they always just invite more questions and more requests. And again, they're usually very well-meaning, but I'm just trying to really be aware of what I put on my platter these days, and it is just too much. So I hope you understand. And yeah, I think we have so many resources out there, like especially in this knitting community, we have so many books and videos and craftsy classes, and there's so much there, and there's even so much free stuff out there. So you don't even have to spend a whole lot of money if you want something. But that is why I don't really see the point in me adding more content. Like, you probably don't need the 10 millionth video on how to knit socks, because there are just so many great resources out there and so many people who already do it much better than I would. So I just kind of don't see my channel going in that direction, and I hope that you guys understand. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say. I hope it came across in the right way. And again, I do appreciate it so much if I get messages from you, because the vast majority of them are very nice and well-meaning. But if I sometimes don't get around to answering, please don't take it personally. It is just, yeah, it is just sometimes it gets too much, and I am trying to focus on where I put my energy and what is important and what is nice, but maybe not that important. So yeah, that's basically all that I have in terms of knitting content for this week, and beyond that, there's just not that much to talk about. We're still in coronavirus situations, but at least here in Germany, it is kind of starting to be a bit more relaxed now, which is, it feels nice. I'm not going to comment on what I think about lockdown or measures or whatever, because it is not my place, and there's no point in discussing that here right now. But at least things are kind of starting to feel a little bit more normal. So this morning we actually drove down to Lake Starnberg, which is quite close to where we live. And for the first time, like, stores were open again. Not that we went into the stores, but it felt so weird to have like people in the streets again. And we just grabbed our coffee to go and walked along the lake. It was really, really lovely. I think it was my second time in 8 weeks that I've kind of gone beyond where I can walk from our apartment. So it just feels so nice sometimes to breathe a little bit of different air. The weather is thankfully nice again, so I've been doing a lot of walking. I'm also still doing a ton of yoga, which really helps me at the moment. Just kind of staying fit and preventing all those back aches and all these various aches that you do get every now and then. So I'm planning to spend a lot of time on my balcony today. It's also my birthday next week, so I have some exciting things planned, like social distancing birthday plans, but still. And I've actually, how to explain this? I am one of those weird people who gets really, really strangely excited about their birthday. Like, I usually start getting excited about my birthday in January. And my birthday last year was a bit of a letdown for various reasons, none of them serious. But again, I'm like a 3-year-old when it comes to birthdays. So when the whole corona crisis happened, I was like, oh man, like, I can't celebrate my birthday. What I did is I actually treated myself to a couple of things and then just never opened them. So I'm basically just giving myself birthday presents. So I think next week, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a regular episode or if it's going to be like a special thing. But I should have some yarny, fun birthday things to share with you, which that should be very, very fun. So that is essentially what is happening. So I will be back with you next week, probably on the Friday, if not earlier. And until then, of course, you can always catch up with me over on Instagram, where you can find me as The Happy Knitting Podcast. I never mention these things, but of course, you're welcome to also join our Ravelry group, which again is linked underneath this video. And if I don't see you there, I will just see you in my next episode. So thank you so much for watching. Please continue to stay safe, stay healthy, have so much fun with your yarn and your crafts, and I will see you very, very soon. Happy knitting! Bye!